Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Dwarves led by a standard Dwarf Lord and the Greenskins who are going to be led by Grimgor Ironhide. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So in this game, we're going with a bit of a DAWI onion strategy. And what I mean is having multiple layers. So a lot of times I see Dwarf players, including myself, I used to do this all the time, and I've been changing it up a little bit, mainly against the Greenskins. Granted, from faction to faction it varies, but I try to have multiple layers, because what can happen is if you have a front line of, let's say, Longbeards with great weapons, maybe some Ironbreakers to try and hold back the Green Tide here, the Black Orcs with Ere We Go and Walk can really just crush through your front line very quickly with their buffs, especially now that they're global. And then they get into your missiles a little bit quicker than I would like. So what I do here is I have multiple layers. So in the front here, I have Miners with Blasting Charges, 2 groups of those, and then the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers. And these guys are all actually vanguarded, so it gives you a nice kind of like I said, a layer, and forces your opponent to kind of push through all of them. Their infantry get mucked up, it buys more time for your missiles, and ultimately I feel like it's probably one of the better ways to play the Dwarves in this matchup. Of course, it is a case-to-case basis, but we have our Blasting Charges in the front line, Norgrimlings, and then behind them we have 2 groups of Bugman's Rangers. So these guys are one of those units that are very independent. You don't have to worry too much about protecting them if they get attacked by Wolf Riders or Spider Riders or any sort of other harass unit, Nasty Skulkers, Goblins, whatever it may be. They're going to be able to, basically beat them down in melee because they do have a 31 weapon strength, really high melee defense, regeneration, just a solid unit. On top of that, in our secondary line, we have a couple groups of Dwarf Warriors. So had I just had a front line of Dwarf Warriors and Ironbreakers, right? The Black Orcs would get there, their global wall would be hitting all of them, but now the global wall is most likely only going to be hitting a layer. So it's probably going to be hitting the Ironbreakers or the Miners or something else, and should be in our favor there. We do have the Dwarf Warriors in the secondary line. In the back, we have the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. 2 more groups of Miners guarding the double Organ Guns. So Organ Guns are very good against Black Orcs. They're good against Cav. Just a solid artillery piece. And again, the layer strategy is very conducive for actually protecting these things. And you can see they're going to be teeing off in the Black Orcs back there. 2 Runesmiths on either flank and a Dwarf Lord in the middle. That's pretty much it. For my opponent, he does have some harass units. He's got Goblin Wolf Riders coming from the back here, so he's probably just going to be trying to blitzkrieg my Organ Guns. Front line of Black Orcs for the most part. He does have some Nasty Skulkers up and around the flanks, which is a very good tactic. If you can use their stock ability, sneak up on artillery, and oftentimes they trade pretty effectively with Miners if they don't take the Blasting Charges. If they take the Blasting Charges, they just get massacred. But he does have Grimgor, so a little bit of wild action. Let's see if he's got the Gitsnick. He does have Gitsnick, which of course gives him massive AP. So if he pops Gitsnick and then, attacks like a Dwarf Lord, he'll just absolutely punish him. But I really feel like Grimgor should have like massive monster HP. He should have like 5,000 or 6,000 HP, like similar to Throg. I mean, in lore, he's very powerful, and he's pretty weak as it stands. He does have some Warlords boys, some Nasty Skulkers, looks like some Savage Orcs out here on the far side. Maybe looking to get them up and around and like kill Slayers, because Savage Orcs would cut through Slayers very quickly. But again, I didn't bring these Slayers, so I'm not sure how they'll do. But anyways, without further ado, let's get this game underway. So you can see the Organ Gun just tearing into these Black Orcs, cleaving through their lines, and the first of the Blasting Charges are going to be coming through here from the Miners. I think they're throwing them right now, which is great because it's doing damage, it's slowing down the Black Orcs, it's kind of allowing my Organ Guns and my Bugman's Rangers in the secondary line to really just waste into these guys. And you can see these Black Orcs are at half health. Of course, they're just gonna beat down my Miners right here, but they're accomplishing their goal. They're slowing down my opponent. Over here, the other Blasting Charges from the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers are also slowing down these Black Orcs, and that's gonna be a pretty even trade. I think Norgrimlings might even be able to win that, maybe. Their melee defense is just so damn high, but one group of Blasting Charges here on these Nasty Skulkers is able to just really pound them. But you can see my opponent coming through with an Angry Baconator. So he does have an Orc Shaman instead of a Warzog, of course, because he's using Grimgor. And the Baconator is just going to be charging in, and Greenskin Cav do have decent AP values. Granted, it doesn't really matter against the Bugman's Rangers, but he charges in, gets a nice little attack, and some of the Goblins are going to be rushing through. So what I do is I pull my Auxiliary Dwarf Warriors, and here comes the Global Wall. So it's really going to be a ton of pressure on my front line, but what's great is, check this out, he just kills some Miners, the Global Wall is, almost halfway done, he has to march to fight another unit. So the Global Wall is going to be wasted on a lot of troops. Granted, the Nasty Skulkers over here are going to be hitting pretty hard against these poor Dwarf Warriors. And you can see the Runesmith is going to be leading the battle here and hopefully holding the tide with his Rune of Negation. In the meantime, he did attack my backline pretty aggressively with 2 Goblin Wolf Riders, which he timed with the Global Wall. And he was able to knock me off my Organ Guns, but you can see I was able to fend him off with the Miners and some of my heroic units back there, my Runesmith. Now the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass are being pulled in, and I feel like they might be able to finish off these Black Orcs, considering they do have that anti-infantry bonus. It's going to be pretty close, unless there's some sort of Greenskin magic here, but yeah, that's a lot of Dwarfs compared to just the 41 Black Orcs. So the Orc Shaman continuing to just press in and try and do as much damage as he can. The Bugman's Rangers providing some pretty solid overwatch here on the Savage Orcs and doing a ton of damage against their whopping 0 armor. Grimgor, though, this is the problem. Grimgor is getting inexorably closer to my forces. He's just been pushing through, and I think he's just been ignoring everything and basically just waiting for my Dwarf Lord because, man, he would annihilate a standard Dwarf Lord. I don't know how he would duel against like Grombrindle or some of those other guys, but I feel like his HP is just so damn low. But anyways, you can see the Orc Shaman back here got a little bit crazy. He pushed too far into the Dwarven holds, and we were able to get the Bugman's Rangers and the Dwarf Lord to just kind of pound him out. The good thing for me is that the Organ Guns are still firing, so as my opponent breaks through the layers of the onions here, the Dwarf Warriors are obviously going to collapse. The Organ Gun is going to be providing overwatch, shooting into some of those Black Orcs, and just, you know, covering the retreat of my existing Dwarves. So if we take a look at the battle, the bounce power is pretty even, 544 to 645, give or take. The Orc Shaman has been pushed off, and it looks like the Savage Orcs have gotten up and around the flank, but Miners, you have like 80 armor, and you can see the Bugman's Rangers in the distance are providing some solid overwatch, just shooting into the back of these guys, really helping to even out the fight. But yeah, the Savage Orcs are just going to be taking the Miners to Pound Town, most likely. Granted, I do have a Dwarf Lord as well as a Runesmith, but you can see Grimgor has made it into the back. He's going to be cleaving some of these Bugman's Rangers, but yeah, I don't know. He needs something. He definitely needs a little something. But he's going to be pushing through. The Organ Gun's just blasting right past him, probably deafening him a little bit. But he's going for that Dwarf Lord, Swiggity Swooty. He's got his Gitsnick, and this is going to be a pretty scary moment if he can actually catch him. Ruin of Wrath and Ruin going down on the Savage Orc Biggins over here and doing some pretty decent damage, of course. Yeah, because they have physical resist, so they don't have anything against the magic. And Grimgor getting a little bit off task, but you can see him and his Orc Shaman are going to be going after the Dwarf Lord now. And let's see, I wonder if he already used Gitsnick. Doesn't look like, yeah, it looks like he may have already used it, but it looks like there's going to be a buff going down, maybe an Ere We Go or something. And the Dwarf Lord is just getting taken to town. 2100 HP right there. Let's see if Grimgor hit him again. They're like, flags are blocking each other. Yeah, and he's down to 1300 HP, so Grimgor is just absolutely punishing my Lord, throwing some blasting charges in there, trying to get some space for my Lord. And it looks like a Foot of Gork is going to be going down as well on top of my Runesmith, and looks like just some miners, so it didn't do a whole lot of damage. But the Organ Gun's doing a really good job just continuing to just waste these Black Orcs here. And they're still kind of mucked up fighting the, I think those are the Norcooling Ironbreakers over there. Are they still fighting? Yeah, they fought to the bitter end, even against some magic and other foul treachery here. But the Bugman's Rangers, a really nice kind of rotating piece. So for anyone who plays football or soccer, as we call it here in America, they're kind of like the sweepers. They're just using their relative dwarf speed of 33, roaming around, just picking off the orcs as they advance through the layers of the onion. And you can see right here, I had to run away from Grimgor because he was just taking my Lord to Pound Town here. Now you can see that the Runesmith and some Dwarf Warriors are basically just going to drag him through the mud. But the bounce power is in my favor at this point. The Organ Guns, though they did take a ton of damage, are back online. We were able to fend off the Black Orcs and the other Greenskin troops. The Wolf Riders are pretty much offline as well. I think there's some like Greenskins rallying over here in the hills. You can see a last global wall going off, but these nasty Skulkers trying to come in and be the heroes of their people, but they're going to be met with a volley of blasting charges from those dwarves, and it looks like there's a couple of them. They're like, nope, we're just going to turn around and run through the fire now. We'd rather run back through that fire than fight the proud DAWI. So things are looking pretty good here. The global wall, of course, giving them a bit of a fourth quarter push. You can see these Black Orcs are going to be coming in against the volleys of the Bugman's Rangers, and the Organ Guns just tearing them to shreds, still firing after all this time. And I really like this layering strategy with the Dwarves. I've done it in the past, but I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I would highly recommend it. The Bugman's Rangers, even though they don't have the best AP, still just a volume of fire should be able to finish off these Black Orcs. You can see Grimgor Ironhide is putting up a fight, but now the Unified Dwarves with their karate kicks and their overhead hammer smashes, and the Dwarf Lord, of course, in the back here should have enough AP to bring down the great Grimgor Ironhide. The Orc Shaman does come in the fourth quarter, but he's shaken, and he does use his Skull Wand of Kaloth, which you don't see terribly often, but it does give him pretty fat weapon damage for sure. But at this point, Grimgor and the Orc Shaman are going to fall to the unified forces of the Dwarves, and that is going to be all she wrote. So well played to my opponent. It was a very fun game for sure, and I like that build quite a bit. Of course, more experimentation required, but Black Orcs are, of course, what I usually do against the Dwarves. I usually like to bring 4 and then just bring like some, harass units and Russiers and a couple other things like that. But it's definitely annoying for the Black Orcs, which are very slow units, have to advance on blasting charges. When they get there, they're taking organ gunfire. When they kill a cheap group of miners, they're then taking organ gunfire and fire from the Bugman's Rangers again, and just all kinds of stuff like that. So I feel like it was pretty fun. Granted, it wasn't the most competitive build for my opponent. He was bringing Grimgor Ironhide, which is always something people usually just bring for fun. He's not going to win you any games, really, but Wurzog obviously would have been, with Bonewood Staff, completely changes the dynamic of the game for sure. On top of that, I would probably cut the Savage Orc Biggins and just cut those guys, get a couple like more Russiers, and like Russiers are actually pretty good. Like Russiers plus 2 Goblin Archers can do some pretty good focus fire with the Armor Sundering. On top of that, just get some more skirmish units, maybe, which is more infantry, Orc Boys to kind of swarm and maybe take the initial volleys from the miners with blasting charges. There's a lot of different stuff you can, but anyways, very well played to my opponent, man. TA1. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this grudge match. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.